Hi there, this is Heather Bransco, Abilities Neurological Rehabilitation, and today we're going to be talking about selecting the best, which is how we hire people at Abilities Neurological Rehabilitation. So I think this is important for a couple of reasons. So if you are a potential client, I think it's important. Don't you want to know how I hire people? What's my process? And definitely the process has changed over the years. So I'm going to let you in on some secrets on our current process and how we're hiring the best. And secondly, maybe you want to work at Abilities. And so if you do, or if you know somebody that does, we're going to give you an inside edge and some secrets to help to get you into that door faster. So once I've decided that it's time to hire somebody, we really want to start looking at not just the basic skill set. Obviously, we have jobs like therapy jobs that require basic skill sets. You need to be a member of the professional organization and be registered. But beyond those basic skill sets, I'm really looking for the fit. The fit is the key. And I know people talk about that all the time, but really at Abilities, the fit is the key. And it's not just an altruistic kind of brand thing that's really cool in business, but really for me, if we can find the best fit, one, we're going to minimize turnover. That's going to make the clients that come to Abilities happier, and that's going to make my life easier. So it's a win for everybody involved. So I would rather hire slower and make a good fit than to try and hire quickly and then regret it. I've done that in the past and it doesn't really work out. So now I know, knowing that fit is the key, I do active hunting, what I like to call active hunting. To me, finding the right staff at Abilities is no different than finding the right client. So we do a lot of work about making sure that we are the right fit for the clients that we are serving, and that's really important from a staff point of view as well. So I don't just put out a nice kind of clever ad. I'm not quite of a stalker, I wouldn't go that far, but I actively hunt that people. So I ask our staff. Our staff are some of the best recruiters that I've ever had because they know Abilities, they know how it works, and so they have a really good sense of who's going to be a good fit. So I am asking the people on my staff of who would be that next good fit all the time. But I will go and I will do research on the internet. I will send out emails to people through my networks and even outside of my networks, just to start to have that conversation to see if that's a fit. Now, I do have lines about that. For me, if someone is working in another private practice, to me, I don't think it's ethical for me to actively seek them out. I think if you're in private practice and you're a therapist and you're interested in potentially doing a different fit and you initiate that as a therapist, that's one thing. But I don't think it's really ethical or kind for me to poach other therapists from other private practices. If you work in public practice though, if you're working in the hospital, I know from myself, from working in the hospital, sometimes you're looking for that satisfaction of actually doing more client care and doing more of what you want to do. But sometimes it's hard to even think about whether private practice is even something that you can consider. So I feel personally that that's okay for me to go after. So if you're in public practice, I may hunt you down. I may send you an email. But if you're in private practice, I'm going to leave you alone and I'm going to let you come to me if and when you want to come to me. So I think the second thing you really need to know about me is I hate interviews. I hate interviews. Some of the early staff that have worked with me for 10 years, they'll laugh about this because we have had structured interviews in the past and I hate them. I think I hate giving interviews probably more than when I actually used to give them because I find that they're not a right fit for the culture of our thing. And so yes, we are professional services, so we are professional, but really we are friendly and fun. And an interview where we sit down and we talk about, tell me what your strengths are and tell me what your weaknesses are, that's really not an opportunity to see how friendly and fun you are at the end of the day. So what I really like to do, I really just want to see if it's a fit. And if somebody is not a good fit for us, and sometimes it's not that they're not necessarily a good fit for abilities forever. It's just that they're not a good fit for where they are in the time of their life. So the example I would give for that is really at abilities, when we're discovering potential in our clients, what we really need to be doing is we really need to be giving our all. And there are times in our lives where giving your all is really hard to do. So I know that there's been times in my life that I wouldn't have been able to work at abilities, and not because of course I love abilities, but there were times. So for example, we adopted our last two kids, and they came to our home within the span of 2 weeks apart. And when they came to our home, they came with a lot of needs, not just because they were two kids who were adopted and they were slightly older. One was about 9 months old and one was about 21 months old. But one of them in particular had a lot of needs and a lot of attachment needs. And so I was giving everything I could at home because I had this new family. And so to me, while I always joke that those were the best pregnancies that I ever had, I feel like those 9 months after, I made up for the 9 months that I didn't have going through with pregnancy with them, because it took a lot of time and effort and energy on my part and my husband's part and our family part to come together as a family. And so because I was putting all of my energy as into my family, there were days where I would come to work, do a good job at work, but I wasn't giving my all. I couldn't give my all. I was giving my all to my family. So I got in, did my work, and I got out of there. And that's okay. That's the period of the life. But if I was to look at hiring myself at that time, I wouldn't have hired myself at Abilities at that time, because I didn't have the capacity to give that I had when my kids were a little bit older and later, and once they were settled down, and once it was actually when my middle son went to school, and I could see that need. And there was that perfect storm of, I had the time, I had the family support and the energy and the resources to go forward. And that's when I was able to give my ultimate all and to be able to start Abilities. And so all of that to say is that sometimes there are periods in our life where we can't give our all to our job necessarily, or we don't necessarily want to give our all to our job. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that you're a bad therapist. It just might mean that you might not be the right therapist for Abilities at that time. So I think that's really important. And so going back to the interview, that's some of the things that I want to start talking about. And yes, we have scorecards, and yes, we have criteria that we're looking for, but I just find by having that conversation and trying to explain a little bit more about Abilities and what we're trying to achieve, and what our culture is like, and the way that we like to work. If someone finds that, you know what, that sounds awesome, but it doesn't sound like it's right for me, well, that's awesome. Well, that's great. I wish you good luck to you, because there are multiple different ways that you can work as a therapist or as an assistant or as an admin staff, and we don't have to be that person. We wish you all the best, but then we can go on our merry way. And so I find that's the best way to do that kind of initial screening one-on-one. All right, so once I've lured them in, and once we've talked a little bit about Abilities and talked about the culture, about how we are professional, but we are definitely more friendly and fun, and about our culture, and to see if we are potentially a good fit, then I always have people do a shadowing. So that is whether they are part of administrative staff, or whether they are a therapist, or whether they're going to be a potential rehabilitation assistant. And the reason that I say that is because I am a wooer. Like I love abilities, and I love the company that I work for and have helped to create. So, but again, I'm going to talk more positively than any other one, but there's good and bad jobs there are good and bad things about every job. And so I want people to be able to talk to other people that work for abilities that haven't actually founded the company like me. And I actually learned that because as a therapist, before I started Abilities, I applied for a company that I did some consulting work for a while. And one of the things that they did is they actually gave me names of employees, and they had me call them and talk to them about the job. And I really like that because, again, there are pros and cons about every single job. There is no perfect job. What we're really trying to do is to find the fit and to see if we can find as perfect of a job for that individual. Again, that creates a win-win opportunity. And so I always have them come in and shadow so that they can feel what I've been describing. And I always make sure that I am never there, because it would be really hard to ask really hard questions if you want to ask those hard questions to the staff. If I'm not there. And the staff that I work with are some of the most amazing people ever, and they have no problem telling the truth. They've gone through this process themselves. They know what these potential applicants are looking for, and so they want to make sure that they're bringing on somebody that has a really good fit as well. And so there is one funny story actually that I think about, that I tell quite a bit about the fit. There was years and years ago, so this was very early on in the company history, there was a therapist, a physiotherapist, that I had been conversing with, and she had a lot of skills and a lot of experience, and I was like, wow, she seems like she would be a really good fit for Abilities. And so I invited her to come and to shadow and to experience what Abilities was all about. So keep in mind, I was the only person. That doesn't always happen that way, but in this situation, I was the only person that she had ever talked to at Abilities. But I had talked really highly about the person who was my office manager at the time. And the thing that you need to know about Wendy, who still works for Abilities to this day, is she's one of the kindest, most compassionate, she will hug people. She's just one of the best people that you'll ever meet. She really, really cares about people, and I think that's why she fits so well at Abilities. So having said that, I was talking about Wendy and her role and those kind of pieces. So to set the scene, the therapist came in. I just happened to be there at the time because, again, this is early days. I think we just had one location, so there was nowhere else for me to go. She was coming in, again, to kind of take a tour and to see the thing. And she saw Wendy and she said, "Wendy!" And she gave her this big hug. Now, Wendy's a hugger, but Wendy was a little put off because Wendy didn't actually know this person or hadn't had any interaction with them. So we're like, okay, so social cue, maybe you shouldn't hug somebody for the first time if you haven't had any interaction with them. So that's where we were like, okay, so we're all about friendly and fun, and yeah, you're friendly and you're kind of fun, but we kind of need to work on a little bit of those professional skills. It's a fine line, and the people that work at Abilities, I think, nail it really, really well. So those are some of the kind of funny things, but we're able to kind of tease it out. And for some people, we are way more casual than a hospital. For some people, working in the structure and the hierarchy of a hospital is really comforting for them. if that's comforting for you, you're not going to work really well at Abilities. And again, we need people in the hospital. It's not like we don't need people there. So that's great. You stay at the hospital and we're going to attract the therapists that are going to work best at Abilities. So I think the shadowing, again, is a way to kind of meet our clientele. And honestly, I then, after that, then the person who we're interviewing, whatever that position is, knows a little bit more about what they're getting into. And then I get feedback from the clients that they saw, from the staff. And then I get feedback from the applicant themselves to see, again, whether or not this is a good fit. Fortunately for us, most of the time we have a variety of people that are a good fit, and then we get to pick who's the best fit for that situation. Sometimes, I'm going to be honest, therapists are really hard to get to come by, so it's not like we have 5 therapists to choose from. But what I'm finding is, again, in that first step, because I'm actively luring people, luring in the most ethical and kind and non-creepy way, but because I'm actively trying to attract those kind of therapists, we may only have one or a couple of therapists to choose from, but I think we have a lot higher quality than if I was just to put the ad out and get some resumes back and then do the traditional interview. So I hope that this has been somewhat helpful for you. If you're a potential client, now you're going to understand a little bit more about the staff that we have and how they have come to be. Maybe you're an employer and you've gleaned some nuggets so that you can make your process better. I know for us, again, one of our core values is finding a better way. So we are constantly refining this, learning about new techniques, what's best practice and what's going to work for us to get the best outcomes, because we want the best staff to help us to discover the potential in all of our clients and even in ourselves. So I think that's really important. And finally, if you are someone where you think that Abilities is a really cool place that you might want to work and to help to people to discover the potential, which again, I love, I can't think of a better thing that you would want to do. I want you to connect with us. There is a link in the description of the video of our website, which is abilitiesrehabilitation.com. Connect with us. Whether or not we are putting a position, we are always looking for good people that are coming in, and we're always trying to figure out how we can make that fit the best. The great thing about Abilities is that we're always hiring people because we continue to grow. It's amazing and it's awesome, and which is why hiring is one of my top things that I'm doing. Not because necessarily we have lots of turnover, but because we're growing a lot. So if this is something that's interesting for you, check us out on our website and feel free to hunt me out, and maybe we can go through this situation with you as well. All right. Have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.